There is a moment, and most of us have had one, where someone looks at us not for what we've built, not for what we've achieved, not for our title or our bank account or our reputation, but just for us. Just for the tired, unguarded, real version of us that we usually keep locked behind closed doors. And in that moment, most people look away. They get uncomfortable. They make an excuse. They check their phone. They change the subject. Because most people don't know what to do with real. But every once in a while, every rare, beautiful, once-in-a-decade once in a while, someone stays. They don't flinch. They don't run. They just stay. And they have no idea, absolutely no idea, what that one act of simply staying is about to cost them, or what it's about to give them. This is a story about one of those moments. It's a story about a little girl who said 6 words to a woman in a power suit that stopped time. It's a story about a father who had been running so long he forgot what it felt like to stand still. And it's a story about a CEO, a woman who had conquered every boardroom she'd ever walked into, who got brought to her knees by a child's whisper in the middle of a parking garage. Stay with me, because this one is going to stay with you. Marcus Delaney had been waking up at 5:03 a.m. every single morning for 6 years. Not because he set an alarm for 5:03. He didn't. He woke up at 5:03 because that was the exact time, 6 years ago, when his ex-wife, Brianna, had stood in their kitchen doorway, a suitcase in each hand, and told him she was done. Not done with the marriage, not done with the fighting. Not done with the arguing about money or her mother or his long hours. She was done with everything, including their daughter. Lily had been 2 years old. Marcus doesn't like to talk about that night. If you ask him, he'll redirect. He'll get you a drink. He'll ask you a question about yourself. He's good at that, redirecting, because he's had a lot of practice. But if you sit with him long enough, if you earn the quiet that comes after 2 or 3 hours of easy conversation, he'll sometimes tell you this. He remembers walking back into Lily's room that night. She was asleep, one arm thrown over her stuffed elephant, a faded gray thing she'd named Peanut, her little chest rising and falling in that slow, perfect baby rhythm that makes parents feel like time is standing still even when it's racing forward. When he sat on the edge of her toddler bed, and he said, out loud, to nobody, okay, I've got you, baby girl. And from that night on, he did. Marcus Delaney, 31 years old at the time, a mid-level logistics coordinator at a regional shipping company, a man who'd never once boiled an egg without Brianna nearby to coach him through it, became, overnight, a single father. He figured it out. He had to. He learned how to braid hair from YouTube tutorials at midnight. He learned the difference between a fever that requires urgent care and a fever that requires Tylenol and a cool cloth. He learned which kindergarten teachers were kind and which ones were efficient. He learned how to pack a lunch that Lily would actually eat, how to get crayon off of a leather car seat, and how to explain to a 4-year-old why mommy wasn't coming to the school play. That last one, he never quite mastered. He tried about a dozen different versions of the explanation over the years, some too complicated, some too simple, some that made Lily cry, some that made her go quiet in a way that was almost worse than crying. Eventually, when she was around 5, Lily stopped asking. And somehow that silence was the hardest thing Marcus ever had to carry. By the time Lily turned 8, Marcus had clawed his way from logistics coordinator to operations manager, not through any dramatic genius, not through connections or inheritance or luck, through pure, stubborn, relentless effort. He got in early, he stayed late, he took on every project no one else wanted, he read every industry article, attended every free webinar, and never turned down an opportunity to learn something new. He was, in the language of every performance review he'd ever received, a self-starter, a team player, an invaluable asset. What those reviews never said, because how could they, was that Marcus worked the way he did because work was the one place where effort reliably produced results. At home, he could do everything right and still watch Lily stare out the window at dinner, quiet in a way that broke his heart because he knew what she was thinking about. At work, if he put in the effort, things moved, things improved, Things responded to him, so he worked. He worked mornings and evenings and weekends. He worked in the car line at Lily's school, his phone balanced on the steering wheel, answering emails while the line crept forward. He worked after bedtime, sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal gone soggy while he put together quarterly reports. He worked on Christmas morning just for an hour. Just 1 hour, sweetheart, I promise, while Lily assembled a Lego set her Grandma Carol had sent. He was, by every measurable standard, a good father. He was present. He was consistent. He was safe. But there was a part of Marcus Delaney, a part he would not look at directly, the way you avoid looking directly at the sun, that wasn't sure good was enough. He was afraid that Lily deserved great, and he was terrified that he didn't know how to be that. Here's what nobody tells you about single parenthood. It's not the hard days that get you. The hard days, the days when Lily is sick, and you have a presentation you can't reschedule, and the babysitter cancels, and you end up setting her up on the couch with ginger ale and cartoons while you take the Zoom call from the bathroom. Those days, you survive by just getting through them, 1 hour at a time, one task at a time. It's the quiet evenings that undo you, the evenings when Lily's asleep and the apartment is clean and there's nothing urgent to handle, and you sit down on the couch and the silence settles around you like water, and you realize there's nobody to tell about your day. Not in the way that matters. Not the way where someone looks at you and already knows the backstory and understands exactly what the thing you're about to say means. Marcus had friends, good ones. His buddy Terrence from college who called every Sunday. His neighbor Val who watched Lily in emergencies and had known Marcus since before Lily was born. His coworker Antoine who kept trying to set him up on dates Marcus kept politely declining. He had people, but he had not let anyone truly in since Brianna left. He didn't do it consciously. He didn't make a decision. He didn't sit down one morning and say, I will now close myself off. It just happened, slowly. The way a river changes course, not all at once, but gradually, imperceptibly, until one day you look up and it's flowing somewhere completely different from where it started. He was 37 years old, the operations manager at a mid-sized logistics firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. He was raising a beautiful, curious, and occasionally infuriating 8-year-old girl who loved dinosaurs and hated math, and had recently developed an obsession with competitive jump rope. And he was, in the most fundamental and specific way, utterly alone. Diana Cho had not taken a vacation in 4 years. She'd scheduled vacations, 3 of them, actually. Cancun, Iceland, a 10-day cruise through the Greek islands that her assistant had spent 6 weeks planning. She'd canceled all 3, not because she wanted to, but because something always came up. A merger, a quarterly crisis, a board meeting that got rescheduled to the 1 week she'd blocked off on her calendar. Or, and this was the one she'd never say out loud, because she got to the edge of the vacation and couldn't figure out who she would be without the work to hold her up. Diana Cho was 43 years old. She was the CEO of Meridian Supply Chain Solutions, a company she had taken from a struggling regional firm to a nationally recognized logistics powerhouse in 11 years. She had 340 employees. She had been named to the Charlotte Business Journal's Power 50 list for the last 5 years running. She had been profiled in Forbes, interviewed on 2 podcasts, and invited to speak at a TED-affiliated conference that she also, you guessed it, canceled at the last minute. She was, by every observable metric, a success. She had a condo in uptown Charlotte that she'd spent a lot of money decorating and very little time enjoying. She had a sister in Portland, Oregon, who she loved and called twice a month and had not visited in 18 months. She had a cat named after a Supreme Court justice, Ruth, or naturally, who expressed her displeasure at Diana's hours by knocking things off counters with methodical, dignified contempt. What Diana did not have was someone who sat across from her at dinner and asked how she was doing and actually waited for the real answer. She had dates, occasionally. She was attractive, sharp features, dark eyes that missed nothing, a way of carrying herself that made rooms recalibrate when she walked in. Men and women both found her compelling and also slightly intimidating, which meant she got asked out fairly often and felt genuinely seen almost never. There had been someone, years ago, David, an architect, kind, patient, funny in the way that snuck up on you. He'd lasted 3 years before he'd sat her down and said very gently that he loved her, but he couldn't keep competing with a company for her attention. She'd cried exactly once about that. In her car, in the parking garage of her office, with the engine running so nobody would hear. Then she'd wiped her face, gone back upstairs, and finished the budget forecast she'd been working on before their dinner. Diana Cho was competent and driven and brilliant at her job. She was also, though she'd resist this word with every fiber of her considerable will, lonely. She had not been to the Eastfield family complex in her life. The Eastfield family complex was not, shall we say, a place most Charlotte CEOs found themselves on a Tuesday afternoon. It was a mid-range apartment complex on the east side of the city, well-maintained but not flashy. The kind of place where the parking lot had a basketball hoop with a bent rim, and the mailboxes were always slightly crooked, and the neighbors knew each other's names. The kind of place where you could hear someone else's dinner being cooked through the walls, and somehow that felt like company instead of an intrusion. Diana was there because of Marcus, not because of Marcus in any romantic sense, at least not yet. She was there because Meridian Supply Chain Solutions had recently acquired the smaller logistics firm where Marcus worked, and Diana had made it a point, a genuine not just for optics point, to personally visit each acquired facility and meet the team leads within the first 60 days. It was a policy she'd established after a bad acquisition early in her tenure, where a talented team had scattered within months because nobody from the acquiring company had bothered to make them feel seen. She never made that mistake again. So she was in Charlotte's East Side, in a perfectly pressed charcoal blazer and heels that were not built for the Eastfield parking lot's uneven asphalt, consulting her phone for the address of the restaurant where she was meeting the operations team for dinner, when it happened. She heard it first. A small voice, clear as a bell, completely unself-conscious. "Daddy, she's wearing the same shoes as the lady in my book." Diana looked up. Coming across the parking lot was a man, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a blue dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, carrying 2 paper bags of groceries in one hand and holding the hand of a little girl with the other. The little girl was looking directly at Diana, not the way adults look at strangers, assessing, cautious, ready to look away. The way a child looks at something genuinely interesting, openly, warmly, without any filter at all. Marcus noticed the look on his daughter's face before he noticed the woman. He followed Lily's gaze and saw her, a woman in business attire, standing in the parking lot, looking at his daughter with an expression of, he couldn't quite name it. Surprise, maybe, but also something softer. "Lily, don't stare," he said automatically, the standard issue parental reflex. "But Daddy, I know, baby, come on." He glanced at the woman, quick, apologetic, and gave the small nod that serves as the universal signal for "sorry about that, kids, you know how it is." And he expected her to return it with the equally universal responding nod. "No worries, cute kid, have a nice evening." Instead, she walked toward them, not aggressively, not in a way that made Marcus want to step in front of Lily, just deliberately, like she'd made a small but clear decision. She crouched down to Lily's level. "Which book?" she said. Lily's eyes went wide. "What? You said I'm wearing the same shoes as the lady in your book. Which book?" Lily looked at Marcus. The standard child check-in that means, is this okay? Are we talking to this person? And Marcus gave a small nod. Lily turned back to the woman. "My dinosaur encyclopedia," she said. "In the back, there's a picture of a lady who works with dinosaur bones. She has those shoes, the kind with the little heel that's not too big." "Kitten heels," the woman said. At her she smiled, genuinely, not in the effortful way adults often smile at children. "You're right. These are kitten heels. I'm impressed you noticed." "I noticed shoes," Lily said with the complete seriousness of a person making a very important disclosure. "Daddy says I'm observant." "Daddy's right," the woman said. She stood up and extended her hand to Marcus. "Diana Cho. Marcus Delaney." He shifted the grocery bags and shook her hand. "I'm sorry, she talks to everyone." "Don't apologize for that," Diana said, and something in her voice made it land differently than a polite deflection. It landed like she meant it. There was a beat, the kind of beat that shouldn't have mattered. Two strangers in a parking lot with a perfectly clear reason to say nice to meet you and move on. "Is she interested in paleontology?" Diana asked. Lily gasped. "You know what that is?" "Lily, sorry. But Daddy, she knows." "Most people know what dinosaur science is called, sweetheart." "Most people don't care," Lily said with the authority of someone who had tested this hypothesis extensively. Diana laughed. Not the polite laugh, the real one. The one that came from somewhere she hadn't expected it to come from. "She's not wrong," Diana said. Marcus looked at this woman, really looked at her for the first time. She was composed in the way that spoke of long practice, the way of someone who had learned to present a very particular version of themselves to the world. But just now, laughing at his daughter's observation, there had been a crack in it, something real underneath. He recognized it because he lived with his own version of it every day. "Are you new to the complex?" he asked, because it was the natural question, and also because he found, to his mild surprise, that he wasn't in a rush to end this conversation. Diana glanced around the parking lot. "I'm actually looking for a restaurant near here. I'm meeting some people for dinner. The Eastfield team. I'm with Meridian. We recently—" She stopped. He was smiling. "You're Diana Cho," he said, "the CEO. "The very same. I'm the operations manager for the team you're meeting tonight." The look on her face was something. Recognition, mild embarrassment, and then, to her own apparent surprise, amusement. "Of course you are," she said. "The restaurant's 3 blocks that way," Marcus said, nodding toward the street. "It's a good spot. Antoine, one of my team leads, picked it. He's got good taste." "Should I be worried that my first impression with the operations team is that I talked to their manager's daughter about dinosaur shoes in a parking lot?" Marcus considered this. "I think you did pretty well, actually." Lily tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Daddy, is she coming to dinner?" "She's meeting some people from my work for dinner." "Not the same thing," Lily said. "Is she coming to our dinner?" "No, sweetheart." "Oh." Lily looked at Diana with the honest, unfiltered expression of a child who has just computed something and isn't sure whether to say it. Then she decided. "That's okay. Lots of people don't." The words landed in the air between the 3 of them and stayed there. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "Lily, I'm just saying the true thing, Daddy." "I know, baby." Diana was quiet when she was looking at Lily with an expression Marcus couldn't read. "I should let you get your groceries inside," she said finally. "Yeah," Marcus cleared his throat. "I'll see you at dinner. I'll be there in about an hour. I just need to get Lily set up with—" "Take your time," Diana said. "No rush." She said it in the voice of a CEO who meant the dinner will start when it starts, and I've decided that. But her eyes were on Lily, and the expression there was something softer than authority. She started toward the street, then she paused and looked back. "Hey," she said to Lily. Lily looked up. "If you're ever curious, the lady in your book who works with dinosaur bones, she studied geology and biology both. It's hard, but it's worth it." Lily stared at her. "How do you know?" "Because I know someone who did." A beat. Your dad's going to get those groceries cold if we stand here much longer. It was nice to meet you, Lily." "How do you know my name?" Diana smiled. "Your dad said it about 4 times." And she walked away down the sidewalk, and Marcus stood there in the parking lot holding 2 bags of groceries in the hand of his daughter, watching her go. "I like her," Lily announced. "You just met her." "I know." But she listened. Lily said it simply, like it was the most obvious criterion in the world. Most grown-ups don't really listen, they just wait. Marcus looked down at his daughter, 8 years old, observant as anything. "Come on," he said. "Let's get the groceries upstairs." Marcus was 40 minutes late to the dinner, not because anything went wrong exactly, but because Lily, who normally went to the babysitter 2 evenings a week without any issue, had been unusually quiet over dinner, picking at her food, answering in one-word responses, staring at the table. He'd sat down across from her. "What's going on in there?" "Nothing." "Lily." A long pause. The kind that means a lot is happening inside a small person. Are you going to get married again? Marcus blinked. Where did that come from? That lady in the parking lot. You met her for 5 minutes. She listened, Lily said again. Same simple tone, same devastating accuracy. And she knew about the science lady, and she didn't talk to me like I was little. A pause. I was just wondering. Marcus sat very still. I'm not getting married, he said. I'm going to a work dinner with my team and their new boss. Okay. That's it, okay? Okay. A daddy. He kissed her forehead and went to call Val. As he dialed, he made himself not think too hard about the fact that his 8-year-old daughter had apparently been quietly cataloging the presence, or rather the specific, consistent absence, of other people in their lives, and that she had identified a stranger in a parking lot as someone worth wondering about. He walked into Oleander's Bar and Grill 42 minutes late, in the same rolled-up dress shirt because he hadn't had time to change, and found his team clustered at a long table near the back. Diana was at the head. She'd taken off her blazer. She was in a silk blouse, her dark hair pulled back, and she was laughing at something Antoine had just said. The real laugh, the one Marcus had heard in the parking lot. Antoine noticed Marcus first. There he is. Wishing we thought you bailed. Groceries, Marcus said, which was both true and incomplete. Diana looked up. She held his gaze for exactly 1 beat longer than a CEO needs to when greeting a team member. Glad you made it, she said. Sorry for the delay. Don't be. She gestured to the open chair diagonally across from her, not at the far end, where a tardy subordinate might feel appropriately chastened, but close, within conversation range. We were just arguing about whether Memphis or Kansas City barbecue is superior, and we need a tiebreaker. That's not a fair question for a Charlotte native, Marcus said, settling into the chair. Exactly what I said, someone called out, and the table laughed, and Marcus felt the tension he'd carried in with him, the parking lot, Lily's question, the lateness, all of it, eased just slightly. The dinner stretched, 2 hours, then 3. The business conversation, the acquisition, the integration plan, team structure, concerns about role redundancy, took up the first 90 minutes. Diana was sharp and direct and listened without performing listening. She asked specific questions. She remembered details. When she said she wanted to hear concerns, she actually listened to them and wrote things down. Marcus watched her work and understood, more concretely than any business profile could have conveyed, how she'd built what she'd built. Then dinner moved into the 3rd hour, and the conversation loosened. Antoine started a debate about the best late-night diner in Charlotte. Someone started telling a story about a warehouse mix-up that had inadvertently shipped 1,000 pounds of birdseed to a funeral home. And Diana told a story, with self-deprecating precision, about her first board meeting, when she'd mispronounced a word in her opening presentation and spent the next 2 years compensating for it by over-preparing for every single presentation afterward, to the point of mild obsession. The table loved it. Marcus noticed that she told the story with the same quality she'd had in the parking lot, like she'd made a small decision to be real. Around 10 p.m., the team started trickling out. Antoine was first, wife, kids, babysitter, then the others in 1s and 2s with handshakes and honest-sounding thank yous. Marcus should have left with the first wave. He didn't. He told himself it was because he wanted to make sure everything had gone well, that she'd gotten what she needed from the dinner, that the team had made a good impression, which was true, but not entirely. He was still sitting there when it was just him and Diana at the long table with the wreckage of the evening. Empty glasses, breadcrumbs, a dessert plate somebody had abandoned halfway through. Good team, Diana said. She was nursing a glass of sparkling water, turning it slowly on the table. The best, Marcus said, and meant it. You can tell, the way they talk about their work, the specificity. People who actually care use specific language. They don't generalize. She paused. You trained them? I didn't train them. I just tried to make room for them to be good at what they already knew how to do. She looked at him across the table. That's not a small skill. It's the whole job. Most managers don't know that. A pause, comfortable somehow. The music in the restaurant had shifted to something quieter. "How's your daughter?" Diana asked. Marcus had not expected that. "She's good. She went to sleep about 2 hours ago." "Does she always talk to strangers in parking lots about paleontology?" "She talks to everyone about everything. I try to channel it into a virtue." "It is a virtue. Unself-consciousness it gets trained out of most people by the time they're 12. She still has it." Diana looked at the table. "How long have you been doing it on your own?" 6 years. She paused, choosing her words. "That's a long time." "You get used to it. Do you?" He looked at her. She was watching him with the same quality she'd had with Lily, not waiting, but actually listening, waiting for the real answer. "Some parts," he said honestly. "Some parts you just keep re-getting used to." She nodded. Something in her expression acknowledged something he hadn't quite said. "I should let you get home," she said. "Babysitter's fine until 11. He hadn't meant to say that. It landed like a small confession. She looked at him. "Do you want another coffee?" "I do, actually." She flagged the server. Nothing happened between the dinner and the next time they saw each other, and yet everything shifted. Marcus spent the next week being more aware than he'd been in years of the specific quality of his aloneness. He wasn't sad. He wasn't dramatic about it. He got Lily ready for school. He went to work. He navigated the early days of the post-acquisition restructuring. True, he came home and made dinner and helped with homework and read 2 chapters of the book they were working through together. A middle-grade adventure novel that Lily narrated half of because she read ahead and couldn't help herself. He was fine, but he was aware of fine in a way he hadn't been before. The way you don't notice background noise until something quieter happens, and then the silence goes away and you realize, oh, there it was. I just stopped hearing it. He thought about the dinner. More specifically, he thought about the last hour of it when everyone else had left. The conversation that had moved from professional to personal so naturally he hadn't noticed the crossing. He thought about the moment she'd asked, "Do you?" When he'd said, "You get used to it." Like she already knew that getting used to something isn't the same as it being okay. He did not think about her in the deliberate way he might have thought about someone he was pursuing. He was careful about that. She was the CEO of the company that now owned his workplace. There was no universe in which he'd be the person to initiate something. But he thought about the dinner, and he thought about Lily's question. "Are you going to get married again?" Not because it was relevant, just because children have a way of naming the things that live in the room that adults have learned to stop looking at. Diana, for her part, was in Houston, then Denver, then back in Charlotte for exactly 36 hours before she was on a plane to a conference in Atlanta. She worked. She answered emails from 6 a.m. and sometimes from 2 a.m. She sat in rooms where everyone deferred to her and she made decisions, and the decisions rippled outward, and the company moved in the direction she pointed it, and that was what she was good at, what she had built herself to do. On the plane from Houston to Denver, she opened her laptop and closed it again, and stared at the clouds below. She thought about Lily's face in the parking lot, the honest, unfiltered openness of it. Most grown-ups don't really listen. They just wait. She thought about Marcus at the dinner, the thing he'd said about making room for people to be good at what they already knew how to do. She'd written it down afterward. It had stayed with her in the way that only true things stay. She called her sister in Portland at 10 p.m. Pacific time on a Thursday. "This is a surprise," her sister Sarah said. "Did something happen?" "Nothing happened. I just wanted to call." "DI, we talk on Sundays." "I know. Is that a rule?" "No, it's just a beat. Are you okay?" "I'm fine." I know how I sound. I'm fine. I just called to hear your voice." A pause on Sarah's end, longer than usual. "Okay," Sarah said gently. "I'm here. Tell me about your week." And Diana Cho, CEO, 43 years old, in a hotel room in Denver with a view of the mountains she hadn't looked at, talked to her sister for 90 minutes. She did not mention Marcus or Lily or the parking lot, but afterward, lying in the dark, she let herself think about it for a while. The professional contact was appropriate and expected. Marcus emailed her integration timeline feedback 2 weeks after the dinner. Professional, thorough, 3 specific recommendations, each with data attached. She replied within 4 hours, which was fast even by her standards, and marked one of the recommendations as approved for immediate implementation. Then, and she would examine this decision later, find it both surprising and somehow not, she added a line at the end. "How's Lily? Did she find anything good in the dinosaur encyclopedia lately?" Marcus stared at that line for a long moment. Then he wrote back, "She's been very focused on ankylosaurs this week, the club tail. She informed me at breakfast that it could generate enough force to shatter bone, and then looked at me like she was reconsidering some options." He stared at what he'd written. Deleted it. Too casual. "She's the CEO." He typed it again. Sent it before he could talk himself out of it. Her response came back in 2 hours. A single line. "Smart kid. Keep an eye on your ankles." 3 weeks after the dinner, Diana was in Charlotte for a full week of site visits and internal meetings. On Wednesday afternoon, she finished her 3 p.m. meeting 40 minutes early and found herself, unusually, with 40 minutes of nothing. She went for a walk. She did not walk toward Eastfield. She was clear about that internally, making a point of it. She walked toward the park 2 blocks from the office. She got a coffee from the cart at the park entrance. She sat on a bench. A school bus pulled up to the stop across the street. Kids poured off, the particular beautiful chaos of elementary schoolers after a day of containment, the noise, the dropped backpacks, the immediate resumption of conversations that had apparently been on hold all day, the running, or the not running but very fast walking that was technically allowed. One of them was Lily. Marcus was at the stop, leaning against a tree, phone in hand. He looked up when the bus doors opened, and his entire posture changed, the subtle physical language of a parent whose nervous system only fully relaxes when a child is visible and safe. Lily ran to him, backpack bouncing, talking before she was even within normal conversation range. Absolutely no regard for a warm-up or context setting. "Daddy, I found out today that the Stegosaurus and the T-Rex did not live at the same time, and Ms. Patterson was wrong in assembly, and I told her, and she said I need to double-check my facts, and I did, and she said..." Diana watched from the bench across the street. She had no intention of interrupting. But Lily, mid-sentence, looked across the road. Dee stopped and said, Daddy, it's the shoe lady." Marcus looked across the street. Diana raised her coffee cup, a small, helpless wave. He laughed. She couldn't hear it, but she could see it, could see the way it moved across his face, the kind of laugh that catches you off guard. He said something to Lily. Lily looked both ways twice with enormous seriousness, and then they crossed the street. "I apologize," Marcus said. "We seem to keep doing this." "I was here first," Diana said. "She found me." "She finds everyone." "Shoe lady," Lily said, "did you know that the Stegosaurus and the T-Rex did not live at the same time? There were 80 million years between them, which means the T-Rex and us are closer in time than the T-Rex and the Stegosaurus." Diana stared at her. "That's a genuinely mind-bending fact." "I know. My teacher didn't believe me." "You should print the source and bring it in." Lily's eyes went wide. She turned to Marcus. "Daddy, she knows about sources." "Most adults know about citing sources, Lily. Most adults say, 'Look it up,' and then don't want to hear what you found." Diana laughed. She moved over slightly on the bench. An invitation without being one, explicitly. Marcus sat down. Lily inserted herself between them with the complete unself-consciousness of a child who does not yet know that she's supposed to read whether this is appropriate. She pulled her backpack onto her lap and began extracting papers with the focused energy of someone who has had a very full day and needs to debrief it. "She's going to tell you about the whole school day," Marcus said quietly, in the voice of a man who knows his daughter. "I'd like to hear it," Diana said, and she meant it. So Lily told them about the day, both of them, in the middle without selecting an audience, because she hadn't noticed, or didn't care, that the situation was unusual. And Marcus sat beside Diana on the park bench while his daughter talked, and the afternoon light did that October thing it does in Charlotte, where it goes warm and golden and slightly unreal, and he thought, "This is the strangest and most normal thing that has happened to me in 6 years." They sat there for 40 minutes, long past the point where Diana's empty coffee cup gave her an excuse to leave. When Lily finally wound down and started complaining about homework, Marcus stood up and said they should get going. "Lily, say goodbye." "Bye, Diana," Lily said, then immediately, "Wait. Can she come to my school thing?" "Lily, what school thing?" Diana said. "Our class is doing a science fair, but it's more like a science show where we show what we learned, and parents come, and I'm doing mine on Ankylosaurus defense mechanisms, and Lily, Diana is very busy. She's not—" "It's on Friday," Lily said, looking at Diana, "not performing, just asking. At 6, if you wanted." The thing about children asking for things is that they ask with their whole face. No negotiating strategy, no calculation, just asking and meaning it, and it either lands or it doesn't. Diana looked at this little girl. She thought about her calendar Friday evening, a dinner she could reschedule, a report she could finish Thursday night. "What time at 6?" she said. Marcus went still. 6 o'clock, Lily said. "Doors open at 6. My table is near the window." "I'll try to be there," Diana said. "Trying and being there are different things," Lily said, with the unflinching accuracy of a child who has heard "I'll try" before. "Which one are you saying?" Marcus closed his eyes briefly. Diana looked at Lily for a long moment. "I'll be there," she said. She was there. Charcoal blazer exchanged for a navy one. Still heels, but different ones. Lily noticed immediately and gave her an approving look that was almost businesslike in its seriousness. The Eastfield Elementary Science Fair was held in the gymnasium, which smelled of floor wax and cupcakes somebody had brought, and every table was covered in trifold poster boards with hand-lettered titles that had been clearly agonized over. "Eat Lily's table. The Ankylosaurus, Nature's Fortress." The presentation was everything Diana had expected and more. Lily presented to Diana with the same energy she'd presented to everyone else. No performance for the important visitor, no adjusted behavior, just Lily being fully, completely Lily. She had a printed diagram. She had a clay model of the club tail. She had printed her sources, 3 pages, single-spaced. "She researched this for 2 weeks, Marcus said quietly, standing beside Diana. "It shows. She gets focused on something and she just—" He shook his head slightly. "Goes all the way in." "I know people like that," Diana said. "They're the best kind." He looked at her. She was watching Lily. Her expression was open, unguarded in a way he suspected she wasn't often. "Thank you for coming," he said. "No, you didn't have to." "I said I would." "People say things." She looked at him. "I don't." And there it was again. That quality, like a door she'd chosen to open slightly more than was strictly required. When Lily finished her presentation, a teacher came by to mark her evaluation card. She got full marks plus a handwritten note that said, "Outstanding research depth for your grade level." Lily read it twice, then looked at Diana like she was sharing the news with her specifically. "She gave me all the points," she said. "You earned all the points," Diana said. Lily looked at her for a moment. Then, without any build-up or transition, she crossed the space between them and hugged Diana around the middle. It was the quick, unself-conscious hug of a child who likes you. No agenda, no ceremony. Diana went still for half a second. Then she hugged her back. Marcus watched his daughter hug this woman, this relative stranger, this CEO from a parking lot, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not joy, exactly. Something more fragile than joy, something that felt like the beginning of something, which was the most terrifying thing he'd felt in a long time. There are things we don't talk about in public, the ways we've been left, the specific architecture of the walls we've built, the exact shape of the hole that was made when someone walked out, and the way we've carefully furnished the space around that hole so that nobody can see it, including sometimes ourselves. Marcus had not told the dinner table about Brianna. He'd told his version of the story to fewer than 5 people in 6 years. And even to them, he'd given the abbreviated version, the one where the facts were accurate and the emotional reality was minimized, and the overall impression was these things happen, and I've handled it. Which was true, but not complete. The complete version was this. Brianna had been unhappy for a long time before she left. Not cruel, not unkind, just quietly, persistently unhappy in the way that some people are when they've made choices that don't fit who they turned out to be. She'd wanted, she'd said, at the beginning, to be a mother and a wife and to build a life in one place. Then, life had been those things, and she'd discovered that what she'd wanted at 22 was not what she wanted at 29. He hadn't blamed her for that. He'd tried not to anyway. He understood intellectually that people change. What he couldn't entirely let go of, and he knew this, had examined it in the honest hours of the very early morning, was the leaving. Not just the leaving him. That was one wound. The leaving Lily. That was another wound entirely. Because what it meant, what it whispered in the dark when he was tired and unguarded, was, if her own mother could choose to go, how do you know anyone else will choose to stay? And so, without ever deciding to, he'd made himself difficult to get close to, not cold, not unkind, just held back. Just enough distance that if someone left, they'd be leaving someone he'd allowed them to see, not someone real. It was the most efficient, self-protective thing he'd ever done, and it had cost him 6 years of being truly known by another adult. Diana had her own version of the same architecture. Hers had been built differently, not from one dramatic departure, but from a long accumulation of the experience of being most valued for her usefulness. From childhood, the oldest daughter, the reliable one, the one who managed things, praised for competence, praised for results. Not often asked, by parents who loved her genuinely, what she was feeling. From her career, valued for what she produced, told she was impressive, rarely seen as needing anything herself. From David. Loved, yes. But she had understood in the private part of herself that even David had loved the shape of her, the accomplished, contained, self-sufficient shape, more than he'd been equipped to love the uncertain, wanting, sometimes scared person inside it. She'd built walls the way people build them when the outside world consistently rewards the performance of not needing anything. High-functioning loneliness, Sarah had called it once, with the specific accuracy of a sister who has been watching you for 40 years. Diana had not disagreed. She just hadn't known what to do about it. Friday of the second week. Marcus was working late. The integration timeline had hit a snag, something about warehouse management system compatibility that needed to be resolved before the next phase. He was in the office at 7 p.m., which was not unusual. What was unusual was that Diana was also in the office. Her Charlotte site visits had extended. She'd pushed her return to the main office by a week, for reasons she'd characterized to her assistant as operational and had not examined too closely. She knocked on the door of the operations team's shared workspace. Marcus was alone. The overhead lights were on their dim setting. He had a thermos of coffee from home, a spreadsheet open, and the look of someone who has been staring at numbers long enough that the numbers have started to stare back. System compatibility issue, she said. He looked up. How did you? Antoine mentioned it this morning. I have some background on this particular integration challenge. She pulled a chair to the other side of his desk, which was, again, that quality, a choice. A small, clear choice. Can I look? They worked through it together for 90 minutes. She was good. Technically good. She'd come up through the operations side of the industry before she'd moved into leadership. Okay, and she still thought like someone who understood the actual mechanics of the problem, not just the strategic layer. He found himself explaining something and having to stop halfway through because she was already nodding, already there before he'd finished. You know this well, he said. I used to be you, she said without looking up from the screen. About 12 years ago, different company, same problem. What did you do? The solution I'm going to suggest is going to seem slower than what you're considering, but it'll hold. The fast fix will break again in 6 months. Show me. She showed him. It was, in fact, the slower solution, and she was right that it would hold. At 9 o'clock, they ordered pizza because neither of them had eaten dinner, and they ate it at Marcus's desk out of the box, which was not how either of them usually operated, but was somehow the right thing to do. Somewhere between the second and third slice, the conversation shifted. It shifted in the way that conversations shift after hours, when the professional scaffolding has started to come down because everyone is tired and the pizza box is open and the overhead lights are still on the dim setting. "Can I ask you something?" Diana said. "Sure." Lily said lots of people don't come to dinner, when we were in the parking lot. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Yeah." Is that her experience? That people don't stay? The word stay hung in the air. "I've been careful," he said carefully, "about who I bring around her. I didn't want her to get attached to people who—" He stopped. "Who leave?" "Yeah." A long pause. Diana looked at the desk. She got attached to me pretty fast. Lily doesn't follow my playbook a beat. She's 8. She still believes that liking someone is a good reason to like them. Isn't it? It's a great reason. It's also, he exhaled, it's how you end up sitting on a park bench for 40 minutes when you had groceries to put away. Diana looked at him. "Is that a complaint?" she said quietly. "No," he said just as quietly. "It's really not." 3 days later, it was raining, the heavy gray mid-October rain that settles over Charlotte sometimes and turns everything a particular shade of silver. Marcus had picked Lily up from school. She'd been quiet on the way home, not unusual. She had her quiet days, her processing days. He'd let her be. She'd eaten dinner without much appetite. She'd done her homework. She'd gotten ready for bed. And he was sitting on the edge of her bed, book in hand, ready to read their chapter. "Daddy?" she said. Do you like Diana?" He put the book down. "Lily, I'm not asking if you want to marry her. I'm asking if you like her." He looked at his daughter, the small, serious face, the elephant peanut, slightly grayer and more battered than he'd been 6 years ago, tucked under her arm. "Yes," he said, "I like her." "I thought so." A pause. "She came to my science thing." "She did." "And the park?" "That was sort of an accident." "Was it?" He didn't answer. Lily seemed to accept this as its own kind of answer. "Daddy?" she said. "She's the first person who's ever stayed." He was very still. "What?" "When I was talking. About the Stegosaurus thing and the teacher and the ankylosaur. She stayed and listened to all of it. Most people, I know. They get a little bit and then they look at their phone or they look at you, Daddy, or they say, 'That's great, sweetie,' and they stop listening." She looked at her elephant. She listened to all of it, and she came to the thing, and she knew about the sources. A pause. "She's the first person who's ever stayed." Marcus sat there in the dim light of his daughter's bedroom, with the rain against the window, and felt something come apart in his chest. Not in a bad way. In the way that things come apart when they've been held too tight for too long, and something finally makes it safe to let them go. "Yeah," he said after a long time. "She is." "Do you think she'll keep staying?" He thought about this honestly. The way he always tried to think about things his daughter asked honestly, because she deserved that. "Ma, I don't know," he said, "but I think I want to find out." Lily nodded. The particular nod of a child who has just heard an adult be truthful with them. "Okay." "Okay." He opened the book. He texted Diana at 10 p.m. after Lily was asleep, after he'd sat with it long enough to be sure he wasn't acting on impulse. "Hey, I know this is crossing a professional line that I'll understand completely if you want to just pretend I didn't cross, but I'd like to have dinner, not a work dinner, just dinner, with you." He sent it, put his phone face down on the coffee table, picked it up again, put it face down, got up and washed the dishes, came back. Her response was there. "I'd like that." "How's Saturday?" He exhaled, the slow exhale of someone who has been holding their breath without knowing it. "Saturday's good," he wrote. "Lily will be at my neighbor Val's. 7 p.m.? 7 p.m. One condition. What's that?" "I picked the restaurant. No hometown bias." He smiled at his phone. For the first time in a very long time, smiled at something small and good without immediately moving past it. "Deal," he wrote. The restaurant she picked was a quiet Italian place in South Charlotte, not fancy in a performative way, but the kind of genuinely good where the pasta is made in-house and the tables are close enough together to feel like part of something and far enough apart for a real conversation. They sat across from each other without a work problem to solve, or a team around them, or a daughter filling the air with facts about prehistoric creatures. Just the two of them. It was, for the first 20 minutes, quietly terrifying, not unpleasant. But the way that real things are more frightening than the performances of them. They talked about small things first, the way you do. The neighborhood, the weather, a book they'd both apparently read earlier in the year. And then, because they were both people who had learned through different routes to value honesty more than comfort, they stopped talking about small things. "I have to tell you something," Diana said. "Okay. I don't usually do this." She said it with the slight awkwardness of someone who doesn't usually admit awkward things. "I'm very good at professional relationships. I'm good at being the person in a room who knows what to do. I'm not—" She paused. "This is different for me." "How so?" "I feel out of my depth." She said it like it cost her something to say it. "And I'm not often out of my depth. I don't entirely know how to behave here." He looked at her across the table. "You're doing fine." "Am I?" "I'm the operations manager at a company you now run. I have an 8-year-old who has essentially been managing this situation since a parking lot 3 weeks ago, and I just asked you on a date by text message at 10 p.m. If you're out of your depth, I'm in a different body of water entirely." She laughed. "The real one." "Fair." "Can I tell you something?" he said. "Yes." "Lily said something to me the other night." He paused, deciding. Then he told her exactly what Lily had said. The stegosaurus, the ankylosaur, the sources, the park bench, the science fair, and the last part. She's the first person who's ever stayed. He watched Diana as he said it, watched the thing that moved across her face, not the composed surface, but beneath it. Something that shifted and resettled and left her looking, just for a moment, like a person who had just heard something she needed to hear and hadn't known she needed it. She was quiet for a long moment. "That's a heavy thing to put on someone," she said finally. "I know. I'm not telling you that as pressure. I'm telling you because it's true, and because she's the most honest person I know, and because I thought you should know that what you did mattered." He looked at the table. "You listened to her. You came. You didn't treat her like a thing to get through to get to me. You just were there. And that's not nothing. For her. And for me." Diana looked at him. And here's the thing about Diana Cho that her board and her employees and most people who encountered her in professional settings did not know. Underneath the competence, underneath the precision and the power and the schedule and the canceled vacations and the perfectly maintained distance, she was a person who had wanted her whole adult life to be in a room where she could put all of that down, just for an hour, just with someone who was looking at her and seeing her, and not the position or the achievement, and sitting across a pasta dinner from a man who had just told her, quietly and without any fanfare, that his daughter, who noticed everything, had noticed her, had kept her, had said the first person who stayed. She felt something give way behind her eyes, with the beginning of something she blinked away before it formed completely. "I wasn't trying to be anything special," she said. I liked her. She's easy to like." "She is. And she reminded me of something I'd forgotten." "What?" Diana looked at the candle between them. "That being curious is better than being impressive. That asking a real question is better than having a ready answer." A pause. "I spend a lot of time having ready answers." "I know. Does it bother you?" "No. I think the people who ask the best questions are usually also the people who know the most. The ready answers just help them not have to be vulnerable." She looked at him. "You're perceptive. Lily gets it from somewhere." It was the right thing to say. She smiled, and the smile went all the way up, and for a moment, Diana Cho, Power 50, Forbes profile, the architect of a logistics empire, was just a person smiling at something that made her happy in an Italian restaurant in South Charlotte, with the rain still going outside. "I should tell you something," she said. "Go ahead." "I thought about canceling tonight, 3 times. I had good reasons each time, or reasons that sounded good, work stuff. What made you not cancel? She thought about it. I heard Lily in my head, she said, saying trying and being there are different things. Marcus laughed, a full laugh, the kind that meant something. She's going to be completely insufferable when she's an adult, he said. Absolutely not. She's going to be remarkable. Same thing, probably. And they ate dinner. And they talked, really talked, about the kind that goes sideways and comes back around and skips decades and then lands in the present again with startling clarity. They talked about what it had cost each of them to build what they'd built, about the things they'd given up, about what they were still learning, about the specific, persistent difficulty of being truly seen versus being merely acknowledged. At one point she said, "I've been waiting a long time for a conversation that doesn't feel like a performance." He said, "Me too." The restaurant was emptying around them. They were the last table. The server brought the check without being asked, gentle, not rude. They split it. This was somehow important to both of them, and neither of them had to say why. Outside, on the sidewalk, the rain had stopped. The wet street reflected the streetlights in that way that makes everything look slightly more cinematic than usual. "This was," she started. "Yeah. I don't have a better word than good." "Good is the right word." She looked at him. Then, with the specific courage of a person who has decided to stop building walls with such dedication, she said, "I'd like to do it again." "So would I." "And Marcus," she paused, "I want you to know something. What Lily said, the first person who stayed." She met his eyes. "I'm going to take that seriously. I don't say things I don't mean, and I don't start things I plan to leave." The words landed the way Lily's words always landed. Simple, direct, true. He nodded. Something in his chest unknotted. "Okay," he said. "Okay." Here's what they didn't do. They didn't fall into each other perfectly. They didn't solve their respective loneliness overnight. They didn't have a dramatic moment where everything broke open and was suddenly, permanently healed. Real things don't work that way. What they did? They had dinner again the following Saturday, and the one after that. Diana met Val, Marcus's neighbor, who looked Diana up and down with the frank assessment of a woman who had been watching Marcus's back for 6 years, and then said, "You're the one from the parking lot. Lily talked about you for a week." Diana did not know whether to be embarrassed or moved and ended up being both. Marcus visited Diana's condo for the first time and met Ruth the cat, who knocked his coffee off the counter within 4 minutes and then sat on his lap for the rest of the evening, which Diana said was the most trust Ruth had extended to any human who wasn't a blood relative in 3 years. "She's a good judge," Marcus said, apparently. Lily, for her part, received the news of their dating with the equanimity of a child who had seen this coming from a parking lot and was pleased, but not surprised. She did have one question. "Does this mean she's going to keep coming to things?" "If you want her to." "I want her to." A beat. "Okay, cool." And then she went back to her book. There were hard parts, because there are always hard parts. The professional layer. Marcus and Diana had to be deliberate and careful about the power dynamic. Diana recused herself from his performance reviews. She was transparent with her HR team. It was handled professionally, documented properly, boundaries established clearly. It was not perfect. Nothing like that is. There were conversations about what they each needed that were harder than the restaurant conversations, about space and time and the specific challenge of building a life with someone when you've both spent years building defenses. There was one night, about 4 months in, when something old surfaced in Marcus. A triggered silence, a withdrawal. The kind of retreat that happens when you've been safe enough long enough that the scared parts of you decide to test whether the safety is real. Diana noticed it. She didn't push, she didn't demand, she just sat with him on the couch and didn't make the silence a problem that needed fixing. "You don't have to explain," she said. "I'm just going to be here." And she was. And Marcus, feeling the specific reality of that, the not running, the not filling the space, the just staying, understood something in his body that his mind had known but hadn't entirely believed. Some people stay. 6 months in, on a Tuesday evening in April that was unexpectedly warm, Diana was at the kitchen table at Marcus's apartment, helping Lily with a project on ecosystems. Marcus was cooking. Real cooking. He'd been trying on the weekends to move past his core competency of pasta and sandwiches. He was burning something slightly, which meant the evening smelled of garlic and the slight tang of overenthusiasm. He looked across the kitchen at the table where Diana and Lily were bent over a piece of poster board covered in Lily's handwriting and Diana's careful annotations. Lily was explaining something. The carbon cycle, Marcus thought, from the scattered phrases drifting across the kitchen. Diana was asking questions. Lily was answering with increasing rapidity and excitement, the way she did when she was in flow. Diana looked up from the table, caught Marcus watching her. He didn't look away, neither did she. "Your garlic," she said. He turned back to the stove. "Thanks." He turned the heat down, stirred the pan, listened to his daughter explaining ecosystems to a CEO who was listening, really listening, the way Lily had told him from the beginning that she did. He thought about a parking lot, a little girl's voice. "She's wearing the same shoes as the lady in my book." He thought about a bench and 40 minutes and the particular quality of October light. He thought about 6 words spoken in the dark of a child's bedroom. "She's the first person who's ever stayed." He thought about the fact that he was 37 years old, and he had been running from the specific vulnerability of this, of standing in a kitchen cooking a slightly burned dinner while someone he loved sat at his table and helped his daughter understand how things live and depend on each other, for 6 years. And he thought about how the door had not opened because of any dramatic moment or grand gesture or careful plan. It had opened because his 8-year-old daughter had looked across a parking lot and said, "Daddy, she's wearing the same shoes as the lady in my book," and a woman with a lot to lose had crouched down to a child's level and said, "Which book?" and stayed. I want to tell you something. This story is not really about romance, although there is romance in it. It's not really about success, although there is success in it. It's not even really about a little girl who likes dinosaurs, although she is the best part of it. This story is about the thing that Lily named without knowing she was naming it. Staying. We live in a world that has gotten very good at the performance of connection. We have 100 ways to seem present while being absent, 100 ways to appear interested while looking for the exit, 100 ways to tell people we're here while being, in the most important sense, somewhere else entirely. And most of us have been left enough times, or we're afraid of being left enough, that we've gotten very good at leaving first, at keeping just enough distance that the real version of us doesn't get exposed to the real risk of being known and then abandoned. We do it carefully, professionally, understandably. And it costs us. It costs us the conversations that go sideways and come back around, the silences that don't need to be filled, the ordinary Tuesday evenings that turn out to be the ones you remember. The park bench in October, light with a little girl talking about stegosauruses and a coffee in your hand that went cold 20 minutes ago and nobody minding. It costs us the specific, irreplaceable experience of being in a room with someone and knowing that they're not running the calculation of how soon they can leave, that they're just there, present, real. Marcus Delaney spent 6 years being good at his life. He was a good father. He was a good manager. He was a good neighbor, a good friend, a good employee. But he had closed the door on the part of himself that could be known. And a CEO in kitten heels crouched down to his 8-year-old's level in a parking lot and asked which book. And something shifted. Not because of the romance, not because of the connection or the dinners or anything that came later, because she stayed, in the small moments, in the 40-minute park bench, in the elementary school gymnasium, in the office at 9 p.m. over a pizza box, in the silence on the couch when silence was what was needed. She stayed. And here is what I want to leave you with. Think about who you've been staying for. Think about the conversations you've actually shown up for, all the way, not just halfway. The silences you've sat in without reaching for your phone, the questions you've asked and then waited for the real answer to, the moments where the easy thing was to redirect or deflect or check out, and you chose to stay present instead. And think about the people in your life who stay for you. The ones who listen to the whole story, not just the manageable part of it. The ones who come to the thing. The ones who show up, not just try to show up. Because Lily was right. Trying and being there are different things, and the people who are there, fully, genuinely, without performing it, are rarer than we talk about, and more important than we say. If you have one of those people, tell them. Tell them what it means. Don't let it go unspoken because you think they know. Say it out loud. Say, "You're the first person who's ever stayed," or whatever version of that is true for you. And if you've been waiting for someone to stay, if you've been, like Marcus, Pete, very good at your life while the door has stayed quietly shut, consider opening it. Just a little. Just enough. Because somewhere out there is a kid in a parking lot who's going to look at you and say, "Daddy, she's wearing the same shoes as the lady in my book." And someone is going to crouch down and ask which book. And that question, that small and specific and genuine question, is going to change everything. Stay. Be the person who stays. It will cost you nothing and give you everything. Hey, if you made it to the end of this one, thank you. Thank you for staying with me for hours. I don't take it for granted. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone or something you've been carrying or someone you want to call, I hope you do that thing, whatever it is. And if you want more stories like this, real, human, the kind that stay with you, you know where to find us. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Drop a comment below and tell me, who in your life is the person who stayed? I want to hear it. This is Crest Stories. We'll be back soon. Take care of yourselves out there.